Hey, in this video we're going to see how to move the pawns in YAG. So first of all, I should say a few words for those who already know YAG and are used to the old displacement system. I'm presenting here a fully three-dimensional displacement system redesigned from the ground up to replace the old two-dimensional one. The new system had to be able to work without any ground, but also had to allow landing and walking on the ground when there is one. And it had to do all that with all the possibilities YAG offers with pawns, like moving in groups, keeping formations, riding creatures, and so on. So the system's internals are a lot more complicated than the previous one. And because of that, although I worked very hard to automate and make all this work as intuitively and as comfortably as I could for the users, the system is a bit more complicated than the previous one, so I hope this won't pull you off. Naturally, only time and feedbacks will tell if this works at all, and if not, then it will continue to evolve until it's all right. Although, if you forget anything that is told here, do not forget to check out the help panel, where you will find explanations by clicking the corresponding buttons here, and a link, external link toward a PDF containing a visual memo for all that. So if you forget anything I'm telling, do not forget to check out the help panel. All that being said, although many principles remain the same as in the old YAG, I'm going to assume here no previous knowledge, so this video should be self-contained. So we'll start with the basic principles on the ground, which is very much like the previous system, and from there we'll go full 3D. So first you'll notice a transparent sphere following my mouse. It represents the location of the mouse in the 3D world, and I will call it the 3D mouse cursor, or sometimes simply the mouse cursor, even the cursor of the mouse, when there is no possible confusion. So to move a pawn, we first have to select it, and this can be done in many different ways. First, we can click a pawn, and you'll note that when a pawn is selected, it displays its own cursor as a transparent torus at its feet. Then we can click another pawn, which will unselect all previous selection unless we hold down the Control key down, which will make the selection process additive or subtractive, allowing us to select or unselect pawns one by one. Okay? Then we can also select pawns by enclosing them in the selection cylinder. The cylinder will appear when we click on the ground, and its extremity will follow the mouse cursor. And then anything enclosed in the selection cylinder will be selected. Finally, we can use the Ctrl-A key to select all the pawns identical to the one already selected. So for example, here I'm selecting one creature, and by pressing Ctrl-A I select all the identical creature. Of course, this can be very useful for group selection, as you guess. Right? And finally, we can clear the selection and unselect everything by a long click on the ground, which amounts to an empty cylinder. So once pawns are selected, the only thing to know is that when holding the right mouse button down, their cursors will follow the mouse cursor. Okay? Then, when releasing the right mouse button, the pawn will start moving toward their cursors. Okay? That is how we move them. So one last thing, when moving multiple pawns, we can scroll the mouse wheel up and down while holding the right mouse button down to rotate the formation of the cursor. Okay, this allows to maintain the formations when moving the pawns. Alright, we have a few options available for the selection tools there. Alright, so first we can change their colors. This can be useful sometimes depending on the nature of the ground. So we can make them all red or green, white, black, and so on. The default is blue. Okay. Then we can also increase their brightness by checking this box here, which again can be useful on some types of terrain. Okay, and finally we can make them completely invisible by checking this box here. So this can be useful, for example, if we want to make a short animation movie, or if we are sharing our screen and we don't want the selection tool to get in the way visually. So this can be very useful, but of course in this mode you have to know what you're doing. For example, here I'm going to click the lady here and move her. I can also use the selection tool here and move multiple pawns. Okay, but again you have to know exactly what you're doing because you're seeing nothing. So of course I'm going to uncheck this for the rest of the video. And finally we've got a local grid that will allow us to check distances even when there is no ground. So as a reminder, we can enable a grid on any ground on in YAG. You can see the grid can be made hexagonal or square. We can also change its size and so on. Well, we've got exactly the same grid here by checking this box, but this one will be local. So let me show you this in space. You can see that the grid is following the mouse cursor, and it will allow us to check distances even when there is no ground. Alright, so we now know how to move on the ground. We know a few options about the selection tools. We are now going to take off and fly. So to move the mouse cursor vertically, well, finally I'm going to need the grid, and I will increase its brightness to make things very clear and visible. So to move the mouse cursor vertically, we just need to hold the T key, and by moving the mouse, the cursor will move up and down. So now by moving, we can move horizontally by releasing key, or vertically by holding key, and hence we can send our cursor anywhere we want very easily. Okay, and this will of course remain true with while moving pawns. So I can select the lady here and send her into space by holding key and then releasing. Okay, so we now know how to move on the ground and how to fly. We have to learn how to land, and we have two ways to do that. First, when a pawn is selected, we can press T and double click, and it will send her right on the ground. It will force us to land vertically. Okay, and the second way to do that, so I'm going to fly again, is a new option in YAG that will allow us to switch between air mode and ground mode, so to speak. So we have two new keys for that, X and C. And well, finally I'm going to need the grid again, because it will make things much more visible again. So by pressing X, we are forcing the cursor to stick to the ground, and you can see that the grid goes up and down depending on the mountain and the relief here. Okay, or we can press the C key, which will send us back to the level of the selected pawn. Okay, so again, X will force the mouse cursor to stick to the ground, while C will send it back to the level of the selected pawn. Okay, so if I want the pawn to land, I just press X, I put the cursor wherever I want to, and the lady will land gracefully on the side of the mountain, as you can see here. Okay, so I think we now pretty much know everything we need, so I'm going to stop this video here. Thank you for watching it. I hope you liked it, and if it's the case, then see you in the next. Bye.